Jupiter. So Jupiter is probably one of the most revered of the benefics. He's the one that most people want in angles or in good situations because, as it said in some books, Jupiter on an angle helps to neutralize most of the difficulties within the chart. It's the planet of grace. It's the planet associated with higher understanding and wisdom. And it is Jupiter primarily that I look at whenever I'm looking at a person's chart to see how they'll benefit from astrology. Because Jupiter represents the planet of counsel. So Jupiter represents the counselors within your life, and the astrologer is a counselor. It represents your ability to hear higher knowledge or wisdom. Jupiter, ruling the ether element, deals with hearing. So it allows us to hear things, and not just sounds, but also hear what's being shared with us. There's more to it that I go into than just Jupiter, but Jupiter is one of the prime factors that I look at for this reason. Whenever I'm considering a counselor or a counselor role or a teacher, I try to find a teacher or I try to find a counselor or someone that I can get information from who has a good Jupiter, because more than likely they'll give good counsel. Jupiter is associated with the fire element, very similar to the Sun and Mars. However, with Jupiter, this isn't the fire element that burns you or inspires you. This is the fire element of the mental and spiritual planes. It's that fire that burns away ignorance, essentially. When Jupiter is strong in a person's chart, it gives an attraction to philosophical, religious thought, spiritual interest, a love of freedom. Jupiter is very much a compassionate and planet of forgiveness. So if Jupiter is strong in the chart, this can be a very forgiving person. Overall, though, Jupiter rules wisdom. Wisdom that is gained through experience and shared through teaching, counseling, and higher learning. People involved in professions such as law, theology, usually have Jupiter in a placement influencing career. Jupiter can give a person inclinations towards holding political power or administrative positions. I'm not so sure about today how that works. I think it's probably possible. But what we have to remember is with the caste system, the way it was meant to be, is that we're all drawn to or attracted to the kind of service based on our dharma. And for example, a person who has a strong Jupiter, they'll be a Brahmin. They could also be a Kshatriya. Brahmin because of the knowledge aspect of it, Kshatriya because of the fire element involved. However, a lot of political figures or people in places of power get attracted to that, not to uphold society or not to promote higher ideals or justice, but for money or for fame or for notoriety. So we always have to remember this, that when you're looking at a person's chart, it's not always so easy to say Jupiter's here, therefore they're going to be in a place of political power. It depends on many things, such as the culture that they're in and the time that they're in. Now, Jupiter gives good fortune, optimism, faith, and a trust in the goodness and abundance of the universe. Good fortune. Well-placed Jupiter, wherever it's placed, whatever house or area of life it's influencing, those will be areas where we have more opportunities or good fortune comes to us more easily. Jupiter well placed in the ascendant, in the 9th house, in the 10th house, in the 5th house, that makes our life happen more easily. So remember, malefic planets make you work hard for success, can still give it to you. Benefic planets typically just give it to you. A problem with Jupiter when it's not in good dignity or in some bad situations, such as starved by Mercury or Venus, particularly when he's in bad situations, that optimism or opportunities, the person becomes too optimistic. So this is how, again, as I mentioned previously, how a benefic can work poorly. If you're not willing to work hard, which is what the malefics give you, you just want everything handed to you, and you don't have it in your chart to have everything handed to you, well then, the good fortune doesn't come. The person expects it and then gets frustrated when it's not there, all because of Jupiter being in negative placement. So really consider that when you're looking at charts of Jupiter. Jupiter's in good positions, more support, more ease, more grace. Difficult positions, the person might expect to have more ease and more grace, but they don't get it. So benefic can work negatively. Now, Jupiter is the planet that allows you to see the bigger picture. And when we see the bigger picture, we can be more forgiving. We can be more understanding. Even when things go wrong, it's okay. We realize that it fits into the bigger picture, the bigger scheme of things. People who have difficulty accepting the reality of the world, the fact that there's war, the fact that there's suffering, that there's abuse, that things go wrong, sometimes, not always, but sometimes there'll be problems with Jupiter. But when Jupiter is in a good shape, the person might have a lot of difficulties within their chart otherwise, but they see how it all fits together, so they actually find purpose in the negative aspects of life. So Jupiter allows us to find purpose. And again, this is one of the main reasons why I focus on Jupiter when seeing if I can work well with an individual or if they'll benefit from astrology. Because if Jupiter is not well situated and there's a lot of negativity, well, what good is it to tell someone there's a lot of negativity when they don't or might not be able to see the bigger picture? And when that happens, what's the best thing to advise? Well, to recommend the person develop their Jupiter. Develop a prayer practice, develop a meditation practice, learning to connect with the divine consciousness as they see it. Learn to attune to all these Jupiterian things to develop that within them. And this is a very important point. When we have planets negatively placed in the chart, it doesn't mean that you're screwed. I remember I did a video with Capiel on the KRS channel, and someone had written to me a few months earlier who I didn't agree to work with because I didn't think the chart was compatible, or maybe I didn't think that they would benefit from astrology. And the question that came up was, they said, so if you don't agree to work with us, essentially you're saying that we're karmically screwed. Well, no, that's not what I mean. I just mean it's not beneficial, or you might not get the best out of it. We need to develop certain things. So anyway, I bring this up because if there are negative placements within the chart, especially Jupiter, what do you have to develop? Faith. Learn to figure out how to connect with the universal reality, or how to develop more optimism. And it's not easy. If you're not an optimistic person, or you don't know how to develop faith, or you don't have an innate sense of connection to the higher scheme of things, to tell someone to do that, it's not easy. So anyway, the point being, whatever planet you have that's in a negative space, don't just write it off as though that's it. Develop that planet. Figure out, what does that planet call you to do? If it's Mars, well, Mars causes you to take initiative, to be independent, to use your willpower. And if your Mars isn't good, well, of course it's going to cause you problems, because you're not going to take initiative at the right time. You're not going to use your willpower, and maybe people will take advantage of you because you're not a fighter. So what do you have to do? Become a fighter. These are just some things to consider, and it can be applied to all of the planets. But anyway, back to the point of Jupiter. Jupiter, it rules Sagittarius. Jupiter rules Pisces. Jupiter can give a fondness for animals, for open-air sports and recreation. Jupiter likes to have fun. He likes to play. Not like Mercury, which is more mental games, but he likes to get outside and be in the sun and roll around in the grass. Sport of more competitive nature that really gets the body invigorated. Jupiter gives a broad-minded outlook and usually makes a person generous. It makes the person give freely of intelligence, of wisdom, of spiritual knowledge. And when it's badly placed, as I mentioned, it makes a person trust a little too much in lucky breaks or opportunities, or to be exaggerate what they think might happen. Jupiter can make a person too indulgent, meaning that they just have too much fun, so there's no aspect of Saturn restraining them. It's okay to use your Jupiter to be jovial, to enjoy people, to feel good relating to society and just having a good time. But it has to be tempered, it has to be balanced. With all things in yoga practice, what we learn is that we don't go too far of one way or the other. We learn to be here now in the moment. We learn to be appropriate to what's there. If that's having fun, great. If we have to get up tomorrow and give 3 astrology sessions, it means we have so much fun, and then we go to sleep at the right time so we can get up well rested to do our work. So Jupiter allows us to enjoy ourselves, but Jupiter also has the wisdom to know when not to enjoy yourself. Difficult placements of Jupiter can also make a person prone to gambling or taking excessive risks, so consider that. Let's see. So when Jupiter rules or aspects the ascendant, or is influencing the ascendant lord, this can sometimes give a person a larger body, a larger frame. It can make a person have sort of a magnetic personality, and it'll sometimes give a golden complexion to their skin or their eyes. Not jaundice, but just a glow. And even way back many years ago, one of the things I enjoyed about Jupiter was I almost knew when I was talking to someone who had Jupiter either ruling their ascendant, influencing their ascendant, or ascendant lord, because there would be a goldness to their irises. When I looked to their eyes, there would just be a goldness or a radiance there. So that's always fun to look for. Now, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. Wherever Jupiter is placed, whatever he's influencing, he'll allow that to grow and flourish. He's a planet of creativity, which is one of the reasons why Jupiter is involved in some Gemini characteristics that make a person a writer. He deals with religion, ritual, spiritual growth, meditation, contemplation more so, figuring out higher principles. So there's the kind of meditation which is going through techniques and training the mind and the body. And there's the kind of meditation where you are contemplating the greater scheme of things, higher principles. That's more Jupiterian meditation. As I mentioned, Jupiter gives compassion, morality, good fortune, luck, speculation, luck with speculation. And with morality, check the state of Jupiter. That can give you an insight into a person's morals. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they questionable? Are they trustworthy? Jupiter also rules the spiritual teacher or the guru within a person's chart. If you want to see the state of a person, the kind of knowledge they get, well, that'll come through their teacher. That'll show the quality or the state of the teacher. And sometimes in people's charts, the guru, Jupiter, isn't that great. What are they meant to do then? Well, they're meant to figure it out on their own. They're meant to develop their own faith, to connect with that internal principle within, find their own way, instead of looking to an external source such as a guru. But if Jupiter is good, well, then gurus can be very helpful. Remember this whenever you're looking at charts. There's no ultimate positive thing. There's a collection of influences. Some things are good, some things are bad. If everything's good, even that can be a problem, because if everything's good, well, then you've got an exalted Saturn, you've got an exalted Sun, you've got an exalted Jupiter, an exalted Mercury. Well, now you've got an exalted Sun starving exalted Saturn, and you've got exalted Saturn starving exalted Sun to an exalted extent. So that makes it worse, because it's not just a little skirmish between two villages. Now it's a nuclear war. So always remember this, that sometimes you want things not so strong. Sometimes you want things strong. It depends on what do you want. What is it that you are meant to express within this life? That's the key thing. You don't want it all, because if you have it all, there's going to be too much conflict. There's going to be too much power in everything, and nothing's ever going to get done. So you need to consider what is important to you within their life, and see what do you need to do, what do you need to strengthen, or what do you need to tap into to make it go in that direction. But again, back to Jupiter. And Jupiter can make a person verbose. I have Jupiter influencing my ascendant lord. So sometimes when I talk about Jupiter, I can get off on tangents, or when I talk about spiritual things, I can go in many different directions, because in my mind there's so many connections. So Jupiter allows a person to have that broad-mindedness to see the multiple connections within things. So if you know someone with Jupiter influencing the ascendant lord, or well placed in the chart, whatever it's influencing, it'll give a person good capacity to understand multiple points of views within that area of their life. Okay. So again, Jupiter owns the signs of Sagittarius and Pisces, is exalted in Cancer, and falls in Capricorn. And the element of Jupiter is ether. and was recently asked a question about exaltation, debilitation. Please refer back to the video on planetary strengths where we go over that. Alright, what now? Let's see. Okay, some other more concrete areas that Jupiter represents. Well, in a woman's chart, or in a chart for anyone who likes men, Jupiter rules the husband or the male partner. Jupiter rules sons and children. Jupiter rules our morality and our ethics, our sincerity. It shows whether we're jovial or have an expansive nature. Shows our capacity with speculation, gambling, how lucky we might be. It shows judges, ministers, and heads of religious institutions within our life, our relationship to them. It shows our capacity to accept divine grace. Jupiter shows our spiritual advisor. It rules philosophers, gurus. Yellow or golden colors. And Jupiter is a sattvic nature. And Jupiter rules the northeastern direction and is a Brahmin or priestly caste primarily. I might throw in Kshatriya, as I mentioned earlier, because it is a fire element, but primarily Jupiter is a Brahmin or priestly caste. Jupiter represents our sense of happiness. So if you want to be happy, you have to strengthen Jupiter. And you have to develop the things of Jupiter, which are what? Broad-mindedness, higher knowledge, forgiveness, seeing the bigger picture, faith. And we can consider this with all the planets. What did the planets represent? If we want to strengthen that planet, we have to actively try to make ourselves more like that planet. And not like that planet, because it's really just an energy that is within us. But we need to develop those qualities, remembering that if a planet is weak, we don't have that quality, probably, or the quality itself is weak. And so, again, using the example of Mars, if Mars needs to be strengthened, which is our ability to defend ourselves and our initiative, well, we have to practice taking initiative. When we first do that, we might make all kinds of mistakes, but the more we do it, the more we develop it. Same thing with Jupiter. Since Jupiter represents happiness and the things you have to do, if you're happy, you probably naturally have faith. You probably naturally have the ability to see the bigger picture. You probably naturally have a sense of higher purpose, which are all Jupiterian things. When you feel happy, you have these things. So when you're not happy, you have to make yourself feel them. And that's the way it seems to work, both astrologically and through yoga practice, through meditation. If you're not enlightened, you have to start practicing to be enlightened, reading things about enlightened people, living like an enlightened person, trying to be happy for no reason. Again, another Jupiterian quality. It feels fake and it feels difficult, but the more you do it, it becomes a habit. And you have to remember that being unhappy is a habit. Being put in situations where you're abused or you don't know what's going on, it's a habit. One of the best things I like to recommend people for people to do when it comes to knowledge and knowing what to do, when you don't feel like you know what to do, or you constantly affirm, I don't know what to do in this situation, well, then you get experiences that prove that to you. So even if you don't know what to do really, if you start feeling, what would it be like if I did know what to do? If I had the right information here, and you just start believing that, telling yourself that until it feels real for you, eventually you'll start seeing the result of that, where, okay, now I see I do have a little bit more information. Now I see how this does work. And again, it takes time, and it's not perfect. Sometimes you do well, sometimes you screw up. But the more attention you put towards it, the more you develop that habit. So look at this all as habits. Jupiter physically represents the brain, so the organ of the brain, adipose tissue within the body. As I mentioned, it represents teachers, gurus. It represents banks, scripture, education, and charity. Within the body, Jupiter also has influence with the liver. So if there are problems with liver, sometimes there can be problems with the brain. Sometimes there can be problems with the adipose tissue, or with the liver that can give difficulty digesting sugars, blood sugar problems, or any kind of liver-related dysfunction. So consider that. And now we'll consider Jupiter in particular houses. Before we do that, one of the primary vargas that you want to look at for Jupiter is the Navamsha. Venus is really the primary karaka in the Navamsha, but Jupiter shows the degree for a woman, how much her husband will embody her ideal partner, and the amount of spiritual merit accumulated to manifest a helpful partner. Jupiter can show how we feel in regards to our path in life. Do we feel it's worthwhile? Do we see the bigger picture? Do we see how the suffering and the success all fits together? That's very important to make a marriage work, or to make any kind of path in life work. Okay, now to the houses. So Jupiter in aspecting, influencing the first house, it shows our optimism, our ability to see the bigger picture, pretty much everything we've talked about previously in regards to personality characteristics. A good Jupiter in the ascendant, a lot of people say that'll make a person overweight. Well, that's not true. It's only when Jupiter's in a bad situation when that'll be the case. Jupiter, being a very good benefic and good dignity, can go very far to help a person have very good health. And again, Jupiter on any angle can really help to neutralize a lot of the difficulties within the chart through grace. Jupiter in the second deals with our wealth in general. How do we relate to wealth? Is it blocked, or does it flow easily? In the third, Jupiter deals with spiritual art or written wisdom. And Jupiter can also show us involved in games or team sports, influencing the third, and how we're engaged in them. In the fourth, Jupiter shows our happiness, ruling the fourth, aspecting the fourth, banks. Do we have a lot of money in the bank? Fruit-bearing groves, so groves of trees that produce fruit. Jupiter rules seeds, and even a nut is a seed, so that's one of the reasons why if you've got a good Jupiter, Rudraksha beads can be a very helpful remedy for you. The fifth, Jupiter deals with children, the father's grandfather, and knowledge and learning in general. If you've got a great Jupiter in the fifth house, that's excellent for creativity, procreation. That's excellent for really improving your life and seeing what you need to do to make things better. And it gives you good knowledge and gives you good skills in learning. The sixth is enemies. So that can show our ability to forgive others, forgiveness. Jupiter in the sixth, also health issues. Well, that can show a potential difficulty with the liver, the brain, or adipose tissue. Jupiter in the seventh, again, the husband or the mate, for anyone who likes men. Jupiter in the seventh also shows the wealth that a partner brings into the relationship. Also the personality of the partner. The eighth, Jupiter deals with inheritance, so unearned income. Also wills, lotteries, legacies, things of that nature. The ninth, Jupiter shows the guru, the teacher, the ease of fortune, grandchildren, our capacity to feel that we fit in life, that our dharma is supported. And since the ninth deals with our culture, it can show how well do we integrate with our culture and feel that it's supporting us. Jupiter in the 10th, that's the capacity to manage. If you've got a good Jupiter in the 10th, the person has a large capacity to manage, can manage many things, can take on many projects, and usually leads people in a joyful way if he's good. If he's not good, that can show a person who takes on too much, tries to manage too much, or encourages people, gives them hope where they don't need it or where they shouldn't have it. Hope is okay, but giving hope where it's not even possible, well, that's no good, because in the long run that just destroys someone. So Jupiter needs to be considered in that way in the 10th. The 11th, Jupiter deals with our income. So in the 11th, think about what Jupiter rules. It can give us income through Jupiterian things. And again, since Jupiter deals with growth and opportunities, it can give us more opportunities to make money with wealth. It can also give us good capacity to relate to others within social groups, because the 11th can show how we relate to larger social groups or organizations. And the 12th, Jupiter rules or indicates or influences the mother's mother, and also our capacity for charity. And I would add to that our capacity for contemplation, contemplating the bigger picture, the bigger scheme of things. Good Jupiter in the 12th gives you the ability to, if all things are lined up, hopefully you meditate well, and once you're calm and clear, then you can contemplate the bigger picture. What is this all about? Who am I? What is this life all about? Those sorts of things, bigger picture things, contemplation that you get, where you get information about deeper philosophical things. Okay, so Jupiter's day is Thursday. The mantra for Jupiter, he has two names. The one that I typically use is Guru. So good mantra for Jupiter is Om Gum Guruve Namaha. Also mantras for Ganesh are helpful with Jupiter. And if you're an astrologer, or you're studying astrology, or you're any kind of counselor at all, it's very, very helpful for you to do Jupiter mantras, particularly before a session, to get in that state of clarity, seeing the bigger picture, enlightening your intuition. The more you do that, the better your Jupiter gets, and then information that needs to come through comes through more easily. Astrology is a wonderful science. There's so much to it that our little minds, our little human minds, can't make sense of it all, at least not in this particular yuga, this particular cycle. We're getting better, which is great, but sometimes you look at a person's chart and there's so much there, and you have to follow a lead. You have to follow what they would say your Ishta Devata. You have to follow that connection to the bigger picture, the rest of you. And maybe you'll see something within a person's chart that you can't quite explain based on what you know within your own limited human consciousness. But you say it anyway. Well, that's the activity of Jupiter, grace coming in, sharing what needs to be shared. And as Ernst Wilhelm, as he talks about Vedic astrology, he says it's Deva Prajna, or consulting the gods, meaning that the astrologer is doing his best or her best to understand the information, but what really comes through is what needs to be known for the client at the time. And I've had certain situations where I've worked with clients who have a wonderful Jupiter, and all have done hours of research on their chart. And we sit down, we don't even talk about the research. What comes out has nothing to do with the research, but it's usually the better sessions, because it's related very innately to what the person needs to know now within this time of their life, because their Jupiter helps me to connect to it, and it flows through much easier. And there have been times when I've worked with people who have Jupiters that are in fairly bad shape, fairly bad situations, and I have done, again, hours of research, and even though it could have been the best advice in the world, it never got through, because they couldn't see the possibility of change, or they were too fascinated with the more negative side of their chart. And that's a difficult thing when you're looking at charts. And someone made a comment on the channel about how the more they learn about astrology, the more depressed they get. And I can relate to that, which is one of the reasons why in the future, when I work with students who want to learn astrology, I'm going to look at their chart, I'm going to assess their capacity to do astrology, because we can see these innate talents. I'm also going to probably require that if we're going to learn astrology, one of the steps are going to be forgetting about your own birth chart. We're not going to study astrology to learn your own birth chart. We're going to study astrology for what it's meant to be, which is helping people. If they want to get a session, well, they can get a session with an astrologer to learn about their birth chart. But the reason I bring this up is because if you want to learn astrology, don't look at your own chart. If you want someone to read your chart, do it. Find a seasoned astrologer, because there's so much there, and if your mind is more inclined towards negativity, you're always going to find the negative stuff. If your mind is inclined towards too much positivity, well, you'll probably focus too much on the positive. So you need to have a balanced, objective approach. But anyway, getting back to the point, with astrology it's difficult. You can't see all things. You have to have a good connection, good meditation practice, and a helpful Jupiter, or a helpful practice that stimulates Jupiter within you, within your environment. That way you'll get better information, you'll see the bigger picture, you'll be able to do what an astrologer is meant to do, which is guide a person based on where they are, not to make them feel bad about their shortcomings, although we can point those out if they can be helped. Not to give false hope, but to do our best to give valid information based on the current life situation that a person is in. So these are all fun things to consider, and Jupiter is a good planet. It's particularly good for ascendants where he rules angles, or no, not angles, where he rules trines. For other ascendants, sometimes he's not so good. It just depends. So there's a lot of things to consider here. So add this to your notes, begin considering this more so, and remember that when you ask questions about what does this planet mean here, well, we need to look at the whole chart. So go back and review the video about, or review the talk on important tips for reading a chart. Otherwise you're going to miss so much, or you're going to come up with inaccurate information. So strengthen your Jupiter, broaden your mind, see the bigger picture, try to develop happiness within yourself, and find out ways that you can work with Jupiter positively to help you within your astrological studies, within your spiritual practices, and within your higher learning in general.